Hey guys, welcome to Indie Game Hustle. My name is Charles, and in this video, we're going to continue with the platformer game. And specifically in this tutorial, I want to reference a couple of things that we were doing in the last video, and that has to do with when our player is, I guess, spawning into the scene. Their health is there, and they're able to actually receive damage, die, and then the scene restarts. Now, there's something I want to address, and that's because I've noticed something. So let me go ahead and hit play, and I'll show you. And this may or may not be happening in your particular scene, and I'll explain why. So if you notice, the scene started, and the player currently doesn't have anything in terms of the health, and you see that it has the default text and everything. So basically, nothing here is registering. And that's because we're using the instantiate. So what's happening is the player is instantiating into the scene after the attribute is actually looking for the player. So it's basically saying, hey, I'm here, there's no player here. Then the player shows up, but the attribute doesn't know that. And so that connection isn't made, right? So as an example, let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play. And I'm going to go ahead and just go to my Canvas. And you can ignore this game timings thing. Just ignore this. I'm going to have you create that in a second. But if we look at the panel, so the player HUD, I'm going to just go ahead and click this checkbox to turn it off. And then I'm going to hit play. And so right after I hit play, our player comes into our scene, right? Just like that. And there's no health bar, but that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and activate it. And if you notice, the health bar is good to go and everything would work as normal. And that's because the player is already in the scene. Now, the reason this is, again, is because in normal situations or certain situations, our player would already be in the scene, and then those elements and those attributes and those UI components would just be ready to find that player, but it's not finding the player. So how do we solve for that? And I think the way that I'm approaching it is a timings perspective. So the idea is, how do we say, okay, don't activate until after the player? Because remember, everything is on start, and on start is happening like literally milliseconds, like quick, like really fast. But there's no way to necessarily say, okay, you go, now you go, now you go. Now everybody start after each other. And everything happens at the same time, and we don't know which one came first. So to do that, we're going to try to control that, if that makes any sense. I hope this is making sense. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is hit play. And what I'm going to do is leave my player HUD turned off. I'm going to leave it completely grayed out. Now, under my game manager, and remember, the game manager, I don't know if I explained this, but it's going to be in every game scene. And eventually, we're going to turn this to a prefab. But for now, we're just currently in this scene. So this game manager is going to have a game object called game timings. And then I created another trigger, and I just named it. This trigger is going to be called timings player HUD. Okay. And so on start, the trigger that I have added, so you can go add component and then do trigger, and then it's just going to be on start, and then you want to hit this to create an action, and then that action is going to set active the player HUD. Okay, so basically on start is going to set active, but as you notice, there's a wait command here as well, and I want it to wait 1 second before it actually sets it active. So now I'm going to go ahead and make this active. And so now this will always be turned on. So now when we start this game, I'm going to hit play. This should gray up. This should turn active. And as you see, when that's active, it knows that the player is here because the player is there already, right? So the player gets there, then that happens. And so that is how I kind of solved for that issue. But the funny thing is, this is an issue that can happen in many areas. So it's important to kind of think about when you have certain errors. Say, for instance, you have an error and it's saying it's like missing something in red here. just start thinking about, okay, well, what actions are firing off before another, especially when you have a bunch of on start stuff that kind of depends on another action. That's something definitely to look at. So just to confirm, let's just check to see that he dies and everything still works. So this guy's going to beat me up. And I'll let the spider hit me. All right, one more time. All right, cool. So player died, 2, 1, boom. And then we should transition back into the scene. And then we're back and good to go. Now, our health is not being restored. And we're going to try to have to deal with that here in a moment. Okay, so now we need our health to be restored. And to do that, you know, like we said, the player basically dies and then they get sent back to the spawn point, right? So now we need to, how do we kind of tell the scene, hey, you know, my player is now alive again. Let's make sure he has a full set of health so that we can go fight the bad guys, right? So what I'm going to do here, and we can work out this together, is I'm going to create a trigger. And the idea is on start, when this scene starts, we need it to do something. So we need the scene, and what we're going to do is put a wait, because we kind of learned that having a wait for this may be better. So I'll do maybe like a 2-second wait. And then so wait, and then we want to do, maybe we do stats. We want to change the player's health attribute. And we want to add or set. Set may be better. And we'll just do something high like 5,000. And I'm pretty sure there's probably a better way to go about this, like percentages, like 100% of the health attribute. But I'm not really going deep into stats module like that. Right now, I just want to use some of the basic things with the stat module. So right now, I'm just going to set it to 5,000 because we know that the player's health is nowhere close to that. So all right, so we're going to set it to 5,000. That's going to basically feel our player's health back up. And if we really want to be extra about it, we can just do that like that. All right, so let's first check to see if this happens, right? So when the scene starts, this is going to check. It's going to basically say, hey, fill the player's health to that. All right, so let's just confirm that at least that's working. Because we know that every time the scene starts, we don't want it to automatically fill up. What we really just want to check to see that this is even working. So let's go ahead and get attacked here. And, oh, missed me. And one more time. Boom. So player has died, 2, 1, transfer, scenes. Wait a couple seconds. Boom. So now our health is back, and that's great. All right, and so now we need to think about that. So what I want to do is go die again. And the reason I want to do that again is just to make sure that the little change continues to happen. He'll die again after losing his health again. So let's just make sure that's working. So yep, he died again. And it'll transition to the scene. And then it should fill up. Great. And so it fills back up. And so we can kind of keep repeating that. Now, we're not done yet because we want to know when he died, right? And we're probably going to need some variables. So what we're going to do is go ahead and create a variable called player died. And you want to set it to a type bool. All right, so let me just go ahead and show you. So yeah, so you want to go ahead and do player died. And then you want to hit the plus key, create a bool, and that's going to be the type. And then that's going to be our player died. And then of course you just want to leave this to saved, okay? All right, so that's how we're going to check to see if it's true or not. So what we'll do is go into the player. Okay. And in our player, we have our death. We have an on change attribute, right? On decrease. I'm going to move this up here like so. Conditions, right? And then basically it says if the player's health is 0, then do these things here. Okay. All right. And then this is basically going to load the scene. So what we're going to do with our variable is think it through, right? So now the player is dead, but no one knows that. The game doesn't know it. The scene doesn't know it. The only way is to track the variable. So what we're going to do is basically check if the player's value, his health value is 0 or below. We're going to say, hey, the player's dead. We're going to do some things. And then we're going to change the variable. So we're going to add an action. And we're going to go to variables. And we're going to go to variable bool. And I'm going to move this up. And we're going to set this player bool to true. So now it's saying, hey, the player died. That's true, right? So the player died is true. Wait 3 seconds. And then we're going to load the scene. Great. Perfect, right? All right. So we're going to leave that just like that. All right, great. So let's go back to the front. All right. So now we're here. And let me double check to make sure that keeps all my changes. All right, good. That's still there. All right. And then so now we're going to look at our trigger. Now our trigger right now, it says on start, do these actions. Well, we know that we need to change something. We need a condition instead of just action. So I'm going to go to my trigger and I'm going to go ahead and click this button here, I believe. And then I'm going to change it to a condition. Actually, no, I'm going to delete that. I'm going to hit the X on that. I'm just going to hit the conditions button and I'm going to move it above. Okay. And I'm going to move this condition above as well. All right. So now what is the condition? So again, on start, we need to do an if statement. So if, what is our variable? Our variable, what's our condition? Our condition is if this player died is true, then we need to do these actions. So I'm going to click these actions and move them into the then here. And then it will do these things. All right, great. So that's good. We're not quite done yet because there's one last thing I think we need to do. And we need to change that variable to false, right? Because now the player is not dead. And so if we switch a scene, we don't want the health to regenerate on a scene, on a standard scene change. We just want it to regenerate if the scene knows that the player has died. All right, so what I'm going to do here is add an action, variable bool, and I'm just going to go here, player died, and we're going to set it now to false. Great. All right, so now we should work out pretty good. And just to recap, go into the player death. There's a condition. Check if the thing, check if its value is 0. If it is, tell us the player died. Assign the variable to true. Wait 3 seconds. Change the scene to wherever we need to change it to. All right. And then here, again, the trigger is on start. Check to see if the player died. Okay. All right. And then we have our action. So here we go. So let's go ahead and see if this will work or not. And I will go ahead and move this over here for visibility. And I'll hit play. And so what I'll do there is wait. All right, great. All right, so we got our health. We're good to go there. So I'm going to go ahead and move and get attacked by this guy. Oh, he moved spaces there on me. All right, great. Couple more hits. And one more. Boom. Player died. Great. 2, 1. Power went back up. Good to go. All right, great. All right, so everything seems to be working. I didn't actually check. I didn't look at my player die, but you notice it says false instead of true. So let's go ahead and do that again. So what I'm going to do is go back here and get killed and see if it switches it to true once this little guy kills me. Oops. Couple more hits maybe. Player died. True. See? Switch to true. So he's dead. And there you have it. All right, great. Now there's a lot of things we can do with this, right? If the player's died, in the future, I know that we're going to probably be using the behavior module. And don't quote me on this. I don't know if it's going to work yet. But say, for instance, the player's died and the enemies are focused on the player. Well, the minute that the player has died, we don't want the enemy to, for instance, continue to maybe attack the player when he's dead. We want him to kind of just stop, walk away, do something else. And so having this type of variable is actually pretty useful, in my opinion. So I think that's working pretty good. So everything is good to go. We have our player respawning where he's supposed to. Let me actually go double check that, make sure that's still working. So we know our spawn point number now is 1. And so I'm going to go back over to here and die again. Feels so bad killing this little guy so many times. All right. All right. One more time, I think. Great. Player died. True. All right. And he's going to transfer to spot 1. Great. Look at that. That's working out pretty good. All right. So I hope all of that made a lot of sense. We're definitely going to keep going with this and keep building on this. There's a few more things I want to keep doing with our spawn points and whatnot and get some meshes in place of just say an invisible space, right? So I hope that worked out for you guys, and I will see you guys in the next video. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. To stay up to date on the latest 3D platforming tutorial, feel free to subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to support, you can find me on Patreon, or of course you can hit me up on Discord. I like to talk about whatever project you guys are working on. Of course, thanks for hanging with me. Your support is always appreciated. As always, remember, never give up and keep moving forward. Peace.